Sniper Ghost Warrior 2 takes the bullseye precision of its predecessor to new and exciting heights. Welcome to episode 30 of the 5 T's of Stealth, where we will be discussing Sniper Ghost Warrior 2. Once again, the 5 T's include tasks, terrain, tools, threats, and tension. These are what I consider to be the fundamentals of stealth gaming. Sniper Ghost Warrior 2 is structured incredibly similarly to its predecessor, as a sequel that isn't a big surprise. This game is broken into 3 acts for a total of 10 missions. The overarching story is so similar to the first game as well, it's wild. Act 1 focuses on trying to secure a bioagent rather than eliminate a target, but just like the first game, it turns out to be a setup and leads into a rescue mission with that primary objective escaping. Act 2 is actually a flashback to a time when your main character was betrayed, captured, and then escapes from the capture and eliminates the traitor. Again, very similar to the first game. And the final act is just successfully completing your objective from the first act. Once again, this story is just structured so similarly to the first game of the franchise, it's crazy. Fail initial objective because of a setup, complete a rescue op, go through some sort of betrayal, then redo first objective. I really don't even care to discuss the story more than that because it's fine. Not horrible, but not great either. Just a pretty standard military operations plot. Let's talk actual gameplay though. What are you doing in this game? The levels are for the most part structured the same as the first game. Sneak through an enemy location until you reach the overwatch or sniper position, and then take out several targets. While sneaking around, you will have a few different objectives, such as clearing an area, destroying anti-aircraft weaponry, disabling the power, and in one mission, retrieving your sniper after dropping it. Compared to the first game, Sniper Ghost Warrior 2 is a major upgrade in the tasks department. And while part of that is because of upgrades, the main reason is because this game completely cuts out the super aggressive, guns blazing missions where you're running around with an assault rifle. That stuff was horrible, and I'm so happy that it's gone. But aside from actually just removing one type of mission, how else has this game iterated on the franchise's formula? The big thing I want to point out is the actual sniping segments. In the first game, these would involve a bunch of enemies just spraying at you and running around, or you would be covering for other soldiers in a hectic situation. In this game, these segments actively stay stealthy. Rather than just sitting atop your tower and spraying, the other soldiers will call out targets for you to help them progress through an area without setting off the alarm. This felt so much better and more like a genuine sneaky sniper sim. During these segments, you actually can't stop aiming down sights, which I didn't love, but that's a minor complaint. I mentioned in my review of the first game how my favorite missions were those done cooperatively with a spotter. Unfortunately, I think they somewhat ruined these missions. While there are still moments that hit the same heights, most of the time, rather than sneaking around alone and your spotter calling out targets, you'll actually just be following closely behind your spotter. It just feels like I'm being guided around like a toddler, and I would have liked some more freedom. This isn't a terrible thing to include, but it just felt constant. Another big improvement that needs to be mentioned is what I will simply call sniper battles. This is probably self-explanatory, but there were so many moments where you're pinned down in a small area just desperately searching for the snipers who could take you out at any moment, and I really enjoyed that. Once again, it needs to be said that I played this game on medium difficulty. The level design was definitely one of the weakest parts of Sniper Ghost Warrior, and I'm happy to say that it definitely improves in the sequel. The game is still very linear with limited options for proceeding, but the level variety definitely improved. Now instead of just jungles, ruins, and villages, you have actual buildings to creep through, starting with a massive resort. The entire second act is all about sneaking through a war-torn city in Bosnia, and the mix-up to destroyed buildings was a nice change of pace. At some points in Act 2, you'll be sneaking through a parking garage, or my favorite segment, sneaking through a massive library while taking sniper fire. There are definitely still a lot of missions set in a jungle-esque landscape, so you'll continue to sneak through foliage on the side of the road, but that's not all this game has to offer, and it's very nice to be able to change between jungle villages and actual modern cities. Another major improvement was the removal of any awkwardness. You can actually walk upstairs, there's no weird terrain blocking your path, and there are no random holes to ruin your progress. I'm actually pretty disappointed with the arsenal available to your sniper in this sequel, but that's mostly for one main reason. They removed My Beloved. In my review of the first game, I extensively discussed how much I loved the throwing knife, and of course, now it's gone. I'm willing to be lenient about this absolute betrayal because they added a genuine stealth takedown option. This is great news. There's nothing more disappointing than sneaking up on an enemy in a stealth game and not getting a special stealth takedown. Thank God it isn't just a lousy melee button anymore, and I might add the stealth takedown has some pretty crazy distance. Aside from that, there's really only one new addition to this game, and I guess one other new-ish addition. In SGW2, you have access to thermal or night vision depending on the mission. This isn't a crazy addition, but it's appreciated nonetheless. The new-ish addition in this game is binoculars. These were available in the first game during missions where you played as the spotter, but that was it for the most part. And while binoculars aren't some crazy addition, they are a nice additional option for scanning an area. Just like the first game of the series, you've got a pistol which can do some serious damage while sneaking, and an assortment of snipers. This time around, I noticed every sniper was bolt action and suppressed during your missions, except for when you pulled out the 50 cal, although that was only available when setting up in the Overwatch, which plays a short transition cutscene while you pull the sniper out of your ass. Seriously, there was no indication that you had a second sniper with you in any of the missions until you sat at the sniper point. It was a little jarring, to be honest. I couldn't find an option in the settings to change this, perhaps I just missed it, but aiming down sights was now a toggle instead of something you hold, and I honestly did not like that, especially with the pistol. This is a fine thing to add, but for the love of God, let me turn it off. Again, hopefully I didn't just miss the setting. There was no janky rope and no grenades, but C4 functions similarly as a mission objective tool only for destroying certain objects. You've still got your minimap, medkits, red marker for bullet drop, and the bullet cam, all of which seem to function the same as the first game. Lastly, the general movement of this game seems to be identical to the first, allowing you to sprint, crouch, crawl, jump, and hide in bushes. In SGW2, your main enemy is the enemy soldiers. These guys have a variety of weapons, but I mostly just noticed some sort of assault rifle. This game puts a much bigger focus on enemy snipers, and that's a change that I really appreciated. Snipers staring at you make everything more dangerous. Some soldiers will be wearing a helmet, and these will actually occasionally block your shots. There are also some soldiers who will be manning a searchlight and scanning the area, and if they spot you, the alarm will go off. In several missions, there will also be enemy boats and helicopters, but these don't ever actually interact with you and feel more for the vibes. I should also mention that if you are spotted, you die a lot faster in this game, which is a nice way to really encourage the stealth. Before we move on, let's talk about enemy detection. This is somehow a big improvement on the last game, but also a massive downgrade. First of all, there were no missions where faulty detection ruined my progress with a partial soft lock, so that's one thing to be happy about. I also felt like the detection was much more consistent. Gone were the soldiers who would point their gun at you and watch you walk into a bush and disappear. The big issue was the audio cue for detection. In this game, if an enemy soldier is able to see you, then you will hear a consistent beeping and you can see a bar filling up on the outside of your minimap. Once this is full, you'll get one loud held beep indicating that you've been detected. This audio annoyed me so much. I guess I should have looked to turn it off, but honestly that thought didn't occur to me. I have no issues with audio cues for detection. There have been several games that will start playing some crazy music once you're being chased, but do you think I really want to listen to beep, 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 beep? Oh my God, I started losing my mind. Who signed off on this? I also noticed something a little weird, but I can't say for certain if this is accurate. When eliminating enemies in an area, if your bullet hits a target, then the other soldiers don't seem to react at all unless they witness it. But if you miss your shot, apparently that's a lot louder and all hell breaks loose. Am I crazy for finding this weird? Is it really that much quieter if a sniper shot hits a person and then the wall rather than just hitting the wall? I have no idea how to feel about it, but the simple answer is hit your damn shots. This is not a difficult game, but there are a few moments that'll have you on the edge of your seat. The tension really fluctuates. When compared to the first game, I think we end up in about the same spot. Although, thankfully, there aren't any aggressive missions that just ruin the tension. Just thinking about those missions irritates me, I won't lie. As I mentioned, most of the spotter guided missions felt much more hand-holdy, which is quite the letdown. If you stop thinking for yourself, then how could anything possibly be tense? There were still some solo missions and segments, and thankfully, those still hit the same highs as the first game. The first segment I want to point out is the library I mentioned earlier, with snipers staring at your position and enemies inside the building. I should also mention this is part of the last mission of Act 2, and that whole level should be pointed out. In this mission, you escape from your captors and have to sneak away from your prison and towards an enemy's stronghold, searching for your partner, who turns out to be your betrayer. It is within this mission that the library section happens and is the highlight of that mission, but the whole thing is pretty litty. The second segment I want to point out is in Act 3 when your character and your spotter almost fall off a cliff, dropping your sniper in the process. There's this long sneaking section where you have a pistol with 15 bullets and have to slowly make your way to your gun. This was very intense simply because you could not fight your way out of this bind. What are you going to do with a pistol that's basically empty against all these soldiers? This is also a mission where your spotter actually acts as a spotter and stays at a vantage point to guide you. Speaking of the spotter missions, they also added a lot of simultaneous stealth takedowns where you both sneak up and stab someone, which was very satisfying. Something else I noticed is that this game really loves collaterals. I can't tell you how many times you were told to line up the shot to take down two enemies at once. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, I just thought it was funny how obsessed with the concept this game is. Similarly, there was one encounter where you shoot the grenade on a soldier's belt to take out 3 or 4 soldiers at once, and that was pretty cool, although a little weird to randomly add once. I did have a few technical issues I'd like to point out, all of which were very minor. First, there are some serious sound glitches, and I think it was specifically with big explosions and fire. I'm not sure how to describe it, it was like the sound was just constantly cutting in and out. The big issue I had only occurred one time, and that was my game freezing. I was walking up to my sniper perch, and as it started a cutscene, my screen went black. I actually couldn't even close the game and ended up just restarting my PC. Lastly, and I'm not so sure I want to consider this a technical issue, but in the beginning of the game, there were a few times when my spotter just would not shoot. There would be a couple targets and he'd say something like, "I'll take the one on the left." So I would shoot the other soldier, but then he would never fire and I'd have to quickly panic and shoot the other soldier as well. This was super weird, but I only noticed it at the start of the game. For the most part, Sniper Ghost Warrior 2 takes all of the good from the first game while ditching all the weird issues and terrible mechanics. Although, they do leave a few things behind, such as my beloved throwing knives and the unique missions where you play as the spotter. In terms of the downgrades, this game takes arguably the most exciting missions of the first game and turns most of them into being led around on a leash, and adds the most annoying audio cue for detection that I have ever experienced. All in all, Sniper Ghost Warrior 2 is definitely an improvement on the first game, but it still has its issues. Nonetheless, I look forward to continuing on with this franchise.